Hello and welcome to Social Media Beyond the Social. I am Jess, your host of this session, and we're going to talk about what is one of my personal favorite things in the entire world, and that is A/B and multivariate testing. But we're going to talk about it from the perspective of you're a pre-revenue startup who doesn't have a lot of traffic, or you're launching a new website, or you're trying to grow your social presence, and you don't have a ton of traffic, you don't have a ton of money to spend, but you still want to leverage some of these great tools that large brands use. I'm going to talk to you about how you can. Jump into it. That's me. I'm Jess in the yellow cardigan. My background is A/B multivariate testing and conversion optimization. I previously worked with some of the world's largest publishers, brands, tech companies to help them build campaigns, generally on social or holistic campaigns that have social as a component of them. But building these large campaigns to make sure they're serving the right content to the right audience at the right time. I absolutely loved working with these brands, but personally, I get a lot more joy and fulfillment from being able to work with a pre-revenue startup who may not have the budgets needed to run some of these super elaborate tests, but can still apply the same tools and techniques, and applying those can have a lot larger impact on their future trajectory. You know, if a huge publisher makes another $1 million, it doesn't do anything. But if someone who's trying to launch their home business can get another 20 sales a week, that can mean that they can maybe go part-time in their day job or quit their day job and dedicate themselves fully to their passion project. So that's really where I get a lot of my joy from, and that is what attracted me to Growth Mentors, which is why I'm on here and why I'm excited to share this information with you guys today. I also like data. I feel like I have to preface that. Data is one of my favorite things in the entire world. I'm kind of a nerd, but I also really like the ability to try, at least I hope I have the ability to make data friendly and make it a little less scary and make it easier to use it without feeling like you need a statistics degree. I like data for one of two reasons. There's probably more than that, but the two big ones, one is that data uncovers the real story. So how often have you made a post for Instagram and you spent 20 minutes selecting different filters, writing the perfect caption, finding the perfect hashtags, displaypurposes.com, great hashtag tool, also if anyone needs it. But how often have you done something that you felt was just amazing and then you put it out there and it flops and you can't figure out why and you're heartbroken. And then you'll post some other random update that you put no time or energy into and it does really well and it sucks. But because you had so much invested in other piece of content, you expect it to do better. On a large scale, working with publishers, there were a lot of times where editors or authors of different pieces of content would draft their own social copy and they'd be like, this is gonna be the best thing ever. It has to go out, it's amazing, it's gonna do great. And then it would flop and they will be crushed because they're so emotionally invested in it. Data really takes the emotion out of it and it lets you just subjectively look at what's actually happening and analyze it without having to think about how you feel about it. It uncovers a story that often may lay hidden because as humans, we're not accustomed to looking for it. And finding that story allows data to kind of light the path forward, especially if you're doing benchmarking, which we'll touch on lightly. It can allow us to see what's going on and what's happening, even if we can't see it ourselves, and identify potential paths forward. And often you can use data to project in the future what your anticipated outcome is to try and take away some of that risk of those decision-making processes. There are two tenets of my data life that I follow. One is data without purposes is hoarding numbers. How many people do you know who talk about big data, right? It's a very hot topic. Or they'll talk about all the data they're collecting, all their marketing and analytics that they're doing, but they probably can't tell you, I shouldn't make assumptions. Often, they can't tell you how that data is actually leveraged to drive business results. Big data is a really hot trend, and there's a lot of people who will just collect data for the sake of collecting data, but data really becomes valuable when you transform it into actionable insights that can guide your strategy. And so that's what we're going to focus on today. But starting it out, benchmarking. So benchmarking is likely not new to anyone on the call. Benchmarking is looking at your data and setting what are your historical averages. for various things. I recommend to look at it over a time period or over a post or user or something that you're seeing a change, because often it'll give you a better comparison than just saying today we have 20 likes on Instagram and yesterday we had 50. It helps provide more context to it. And when you have that benchmark where you know what you should be at or where you anticipate you're at, and what the average is, you can start seeing where you have above and below average times or incidences, and then you can dive in and try and figure out what's going on. This is where we deploy our testing. So in the top right, you can see post reach over time. And a lot of times for B2B companies especially, you'll see dips on weekends when people just are not active on their work email. But you can see on the left, we have a period of probably a week where there's more dips down than anticipated. And then towards the far right, there's a period of about a week where it doesn't really dip down that much at all. And there's a pretty big spike. Because we can see that's anomalies in our time or outliers, we want to dive in and see if we can figure out what's going on and then deploy a test to figure it out. So on the bottom right, you'll see a similar chart for engagement based on reach over time, where we have a couple times where it just dips down really poorly, and then time where it shoots up. So on the bottom right example for Instagram, maybe those times where it dipped down, I shared only photo content, I usually share video, or I shared a carousel when I usually share a single image. That could allow me to deploy a test saying, I think that when I share carousels on Instagram, my engagement's worse than when I share a photo. Or I think that sharing video on Instagram will do better than sharing a photo. We're making it actionable. So to kick it off, one of the greatest tools in making your data actionable is A/B multivariate testing. A/B testing means that you have two completely distinct variables. So here we have, two distinct variations. So here we have a red banner and a blue banner. Everything else is identical. That's our only variation we're testing. You'll hear people say ABN, so we could have red, blue, orange, yellow, but it's having just distinct variations of one variable. You will often hear people talk about testing, maybe they're testing a new landing page and they'll have two completely different designs. In those regards too, it can also be an A/B test because it's two completely different experiences and there aren't a lot of shared variants within them that you're testing. A multivariate test means that you're testing multiple variations of multiple elements. So you can see here in the top right, we're testing a blue versus a red banner. In the bottom two images, we're also testing placement between top of the page and mid-page on it. One of the big things you may be asking is, when do I do A/B testing and when do I do multivariate testing? This is a great question. Multivariate testing takes a lot more data for it to actually have enough to reach significance. So if you have a smaller audience, or you know you're going to be putting out something for a short period of time, maybe you're running a President's Day special and it's only running for a week, you'd want to stick to less variance in an A/B test. If you have something running for a longer period of time, or you have a lot of traffic, you can run a more complex multivariate test. A lot of the modern testing platforms like Optimizely, which I'm a huge fan of, and Visual Website Optimizer will actually guide you through this process and make it really hands-off for you to set it up and super easy with it. A few other terms you'll hear. One is statistical significance, which I just mentioned, and that is essentially how confident are you that the results of your test can be repeated and are not due to random chance. If you have a test with very low significance, low statistical significance, it means that either your test results are too close to be conclusive, or there's a lot of noise in it and you don't have enough data to really feel confident that the test is repeatable. When setting up a test through a platform like Optimizely, it will prompt you a lot around what significance you're reaching for, and it can really help guide the amount of traffic that you'll need or the amount of time that you'll need a test to run with it. Null hypothesis is your beginning state. So if our default state is having a red banner and our variation that we're testing is the blue banner, the red banner will be our controller starting state, and then our alternate hypothesis that will be the blue one. So that's what are you testing. So our null hypothesis is that if I don't change anything, everything will stay the same. So if I keep my red banner, I'm going to still see a 2% conversion rate. The alternate hypothesis would be using a blue banner is going to increase the conversion rate on the site. And then lift is the percentage change between the two. So your lift formula is actually your new performance minus your old performance divided by the old performance. So it's the rate of change. So how does testing work? Generally, so in this example for website, generally you'll be using a third-party tool like Visual Website Optimizer, Optimizely. Google has an optimized tool with it too. And it's going to control your traffic. So it's going to split your traffic evenly between the two variations. So here, 50% goes to red, 50% to blue. So I have 1,000 visitors going to each. On my red, I have 120 conversions. And on my blue, I have 210 conversions. So I see a 73.1% lift with the blue banner versus the red, and the blue banner has won. Other elements of a good test, you want to start with your hypothesis in mind. So every once in a while, I'll hear someone say, we're testing different creative on social. And they'll have 10 or 20 different images, and they're going to see which one works. If you don't have a clear hypothesis in mind, you're not actually running a test, you're analyzing data, right? You're analyzing what's happening. You want to really start with a clear goal of what you're testing. A great example is on Twitter, I'm going to test GIFs versus videos. Or on social, I'm going to test, pictures versus images, pictures versus videos. Just something clear. In the previous example is the red versus the blue banner. You want to define your success metrics for your test. So for the banner on this web experience, I could say that my success criteria is just clicking through because my entire goal is just to get them engaged. Maybe you're running a display ad on a website third party and all you want to do is get the traffic to your site to retarget them. I would recommend thinking further down the funnel and what really is going to move the needle for you and your business. So in this example of the banners, I would recommend setting the success criteria to be an actual checkout and the average order value for it. We want to make sure that we're using distinct elements. There's a famous test that Google actually tested 42 different shades of blue to find the perfect shade of blue. I do not recommend testing shades of blue. The amount of data and traffic that you need for your data to reach significance is insane. Don't test minute little things like that. If you're thinking of the banner, red versus blue is great because they're distinct elements. You could also take it a step further and you could say, I want to test red with maybe a black text on there versus red with yellow, right? You can get really, that I'm saying multivariate test for you guys. I realize I say that, but get distinct with it. Use drastically different things. Don't try and be as close as different shades of blue. I generally recommend for clients when they start testing to start with really, really different elements, and then you can start getting more granular within it. So in our previous example, we saw the blue banner perform best compared to red. So someone may say, okay, now let me start testing shades of blue within it, but maybe it's not just blue, maybe it's a darker hue. So maybe you need to do blue versus black or blue versus purple, but start with really, really different elements and then kind of narrow down your field. And the final one is controlling other variables. So in our example here, we have white text on both. We have the exact same rest of the page layout. Our only variation is the color of the banner. If we had maybe different shoe sale going on, or one was promoting boots and one was promoting dress shoes, we would start introducing other variations that could be influencing the success of the campaign unknowingly. You really want to try and control these variables as much as possible. One kind of rule of thumb for this, aside from not changing any other elements on the page, is don't run your test over a one-day holiday where it's going to be different on one day. And always try and run a test so that you get at least 2 weeks worth of data so you can account for any weekday versus weekend variations or any AM, PM variations with it. To set up your test, you want to start with picking out what variables you are testing, if it's ABM or multivariate, and make sure you define what success criteria is in terms of the metrics. And honestly, if there's also an amount of lift that you need to see. Let's say you're testing different elements on your site and you know that to roll out your alternate hypothesis, that it's going to take you 50 hours of coding time to do it. You want to make sure it's really worth the change. You can also say that there needs to be a certain lift for you to make the change itself. Next, you want to split your audience or traffic, generally using a tool like Optimizely, and then determine how long your campaign should run so you have enough data to feel confident in the results. And then execute the campaign and iterate on your results and continue making improvements. Now, you may be saying, hold on. I'm pre-revenue. Our website is launching tomorrow. I want to test. I want to start testing to figure out what messaging works, but I'm not going to have enough traffic to feel confident in the results. Can I still do this? Maybe testing isn't for me. And it's okay, because you're probably already doing this type of testing. I call it lo-fi testing. I want to show you guys an example. So let's think about Instagram. What do you think does better on Instagram, photo or video? And I'm going to say this, you guys should write down your results and tweet at me and tell me if you got this right, because you may surprise yourself. Not trying to spoil anything, but all right. So lo-fi A/B testing. I found an Instagram account and I noticed that they had a theme to some of their content. I started seeing a pattern in it. And so they have the guy on the right talking, preaching, doing a sermon. I'm not sure what the verbiage is. And then on the left, they'll have a video of his session. Exact same thing with captions over it. Oh, shoot. I hit forward too fast. So my question is, what do you think does better, photo or video? And if anyone was quick, they saw the winner. It's the photo. And it's just by a smidge. 672 likes, 5 comments compared to 623 likes, 7 comments. Now I'm using engagement for my metric here because I do not own this Instagram account, so I can't see anything else on it. But photo did better. I noticed though, as I was going through, that they did this quite often. So we have another example, photo versus video. Photo, again, doing better, 905 likes, 11 comments compared to 502 likes, 5 comments. Now you might be thinking, we got 2 data points here. Photo outperformed both, but everyone says do video on Instagram. Everyone says video. It's all about video. So maybe this is a fluke. I'm not confident right now that this is repeatable. I think it's a fluke. Don't worry, I found another example. One thing to note, I am destroying our test if this is a perfect world, because we now have a different guy talking, and it's not just a photo on the right, but it's a carousel. But it's okay, because we're still going to test. It's okay that our data isn't perfect. Which one do you guys think did better? The carousel or the video? Shocker, the picture. Now, it didn't do, there isn't as much of a spread between the two as with the previous example. We have 764 likes compared to 659 likes, but it's still doing better. But you can see over time, they're going through and they're sharing this multiple times, and they're sharing these during different times of the day and different days. So what they're essentially doing is a little lo-fi test that they're doing over and over and over again to see what works. And because they're sharing different times and different days of the week, they're also starting to take into account if there is any variation based on time of day or day of week. So what do you do when you don't have enough data? Don't let it hold you hostage, right? Don't let data stop you from starting to test. Data is your friend. Data is a tool that can help you feel more confident in the decisions you're making. It's a tool that can help you understand the story of what's going on, but your ability to go out and start doing testing should not be held back by not having enough data. If anyone is not familiar, this is Data from Star Trek, and in an effort for him to become more human, he's an android, for him to become more human, he adopts a cat that he names Spot. And this is Spot the cat. So when you test with little data, what you want to do in your testing setup is the steps where you would split your audience and you would determine the time the campaign should run. You want to think about how your audience is going to see each variable, and then how often they should see each variable for the test to run. So in the Instagram example, we have them being shown during different times of day and different days of the week, and they're doing it over a certain amount of time. I don't know how long they're actually running it for, and to be honest, I'm not confident they are aware that they're running the test, but in a perfect world, they would do it pretty they would do it for a fairly good amount of time, probably a couple months. So they're counting for every day of the week and every time. You can make a chart where you're just ticking off to make sure you cover Sunday through Saturday. And maybe if you know that your audience is active from 8 or 9 a.m. to 10 p.m., then you're covering those time periods with it. But test everything. Don't let it hold you back. In summary, test everything. Guys, we're all scientists here. We're all testing all this magical marketing content. If you need more though, if you want to start running testing, if you want feedback, I am On Growth Mentor. I do this for free because I just love helping people understand it. Request a session. I am happy to give you feedback on your test or help you guys get set up or in any direction and answer any of your questions you guys have. All right. Have a great day, and please send me your tests. I want to see how they're going.